My boyfriend, 27, and I, 26, have been together for 2 years. He has a good heart and usually is rational, but his one issue is that he expects to accompany me on every occasion, no matter how big or small. He even went with me to my ex-boyfriend's funeral after days of begging. My best friend got married a few days ago. It was very small and only close family and friends were invited. My boyfriend couldn't come because of the +1 rule. He pitched a hissy fit, saying my best friend has no respect for my relationship and was shocked when he learned that I would still attend. He told me that if he can't go, I'm expected not to go, but that is my best friend and I had to respect her rules. He gave me an ultimatum. Either we go together or I stay home with him. I ended up going because I respected my friend's rules again. He was angry with me and kept calling the entire 2-hour drive, then stopped. Later, I got a text from his friend telling me he, my boyfriend, got into an accident and was taken to the hospital. I freaked out. He gave me the address, and I had to leave the wedding and told my friends why. I was crying the entire drive home and kept calling his friend but got no response. I arrived at the hospital and asked about my boyfriend, and they checked and told me he wasn't there. My anxiety reached 160% as I kept calling his friends one by one. I just went home and there he was, along with his friend. He saw me and said that he was sorry, but this was the only way he could get me home after I left him alone. After the initial shock, I just blew up, yelling at him about lying and making me leave my friend's wedding and having me literally go to the hospital and freaking out because of him. I kicked his friend out and we got into an argument. He kept talking about how much I loved him. Thus I left, which is my own doing, not his, and he was just trying to see if I really chose my friend's wedding over him. He then argued that my friend caused this, and I shouldn't agree with her to exclude him. I said what he did was horrible, called him horrible, and then went to my room. It was awful because my friends kept calling to check in on him. After all, they thought he was really at the hospital. He said I overreacted and that I yelled at the wrong person. Am I the idiot? Did I go too far? Not the idiot. He did it to see who you would choose, him or your best friend. What the actual heck is wrong with that person? You are absolutely not in the wrong. He made you think he was hurt, for God's sake. I try not to be one of those people who say this, but run. Fast. Your boyfriend is a control freak, and the longer you stay with him, the deeper those controlling lies will get. Look how far he went this time. You could have gotten into an accident by driving stressed out and sobbing behind the wheel. I hope you realize this isn't safe for you. Get out while you can. Just the fact that you had to ask a bunch of strangers if you were the idiot for yelling at your boyfriend because he faked getting into an accident after not being invited to a wedding with you, and then immediately flipped it back on you when you found him chilling with his friends, means that he's been pulling this abusive crap for a while. He might seem nice enough, but his inability to allow you to go to events without him is a huge red flag. So please take some time away from him, just a few days, and then read your story back to yourself, and then make an exit plan. Never allowing you to be away from him and spend time with friends and family without him is not normal and rational. He's afraid of what you'll realize when you're away from his spin on reality. He not only ruined your best friend's wedding for you, but the bride and all your friends that were there and concerned too. Dump his butt. Not the idiot, but you will if you stay any longer. I found out 3 months ago I was pregnant and my husband was not happy. He doesn't want me to have the child, but he's been really mean and distant since we learned we're expecting. He works a lot and I'm used to being on my own most of the day. And with my job, I'm often alone too, so I don't think I've been needy, but I have felt extra alone the last few months. I've reached out to a friend I met online a lot, and she's been a really great support, but she lives in another country. After another awful conversation with my husband where I was crying because he said he wouldn't come with me to any ultrasounds and didn't care about the pregnancy part because it doesn't concern him, my online friend did something incredibly generous. She paid for me to have a doula who is essentially a non-medical support person regarding birth. She doesn't do any doctor stuff, but she is mental support for me and someone I can text anytime throughout the pregnancy, and I can even have her at the birth if I want to help support me. Both of my parents have passed, so this was such a sweet gesture. I met her today and she is just a warm, sweet, almost motherly figure. I really like her and she made me feel so much better about all of my worries and fears. She said she would come with me to the ultrasounds if I felt I needed someone, and I felt instant relief. In my area, we are currently only allowed one person as support during delivery. I hope it changes by my due date, but if it doesn't, I think I want to ask her to be there instead of my husband. I didn't think he would care, as he said he didn't want to be involved in most things, but when I mentioned to him that maybe this person could be with me for delivery, he got upset and said no. His brother was picking him up, and he told his brother what I said, and his brother said I was a real piece of work, and it would be an idiot move not to let my husband meet his son first. We don't know if we have a son yet, though, so I wonder if we have a daughter, if maybe he won't be as upset. I want someone else there. My friend who hired the doula said I should do whatever I need to, but she doesn't fully understand because her husband is really sweet and would do anything literally for her, which isn't really the norm, but she doesn't know that. My other friend said it would be wrong to let someone besides my husband be in the delivery room unless it was family, but I don't have any close family. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot for letting a doula in the delivery room instead of your husband, but you will be an idiot to yourself if you actually let this man raise a baby. I think your friend's husband is more common than you think, and you have an opportunity right now to change the trajectory of this kid's life. I'm not saying you shouldn't be involved, but you should think twice about this relationship. Not the idiot, but do you realize that a husband that is very sweet and would do anything for his wife is normal? You make it sound like something out of fiction. A husband refusing to support his wife during pregnancy, being so cold and unkind to her, this huge life moment, is not normal. It sounds like you're in an emotionally toxic and abusive relationship and don't even realize it. When I read the sentence, her husband is sweet and she doesn't know that's not normal, I wanted to scream. Maybe her husband is unusually kind, but OP's husband sounds like an exceptional idiot. OP, please reconsider your relationship with this misogynistic loser. Most husbands actually like their wives and help them through things like pregnancy. I'm sorry your husband is crappy and he has you convinced he's the best you will get. He definitely shouldn't be allowed to enjoy the perks of fatherhood, like witnessing the birth after refusing to do any of the work, i.e. supporting you. He does know he's responsible for creating this baby, right? Not the idiot. Your doula is not a stranger anymore. Don't sacrifice having the birth support person you want for a man who won't sacrifice a minute of his time for you. My sister Jennifer, 25, has a new boyfriend, Dan, 25. They've been dating almost 3 months, and about a month ago, she brought him around so my wife, 29, and me, 29 male, could meet him. He seemed okay, and we didn't have any problems then. While they were over, I showed them the train horn I bought to install in my wife's vehicle. I wish I could have one in mine, but I drive a company truck, so no dice. I have fun if I have to drive my wife's vehicle now because of the horn. Dan said we should reconsider because the horn would be illegal here. Since he's first year in law school, my wife and I thought it was a flex, but we ignored it because he seemed okay otherwise. We didn't know Dan has been a paralegal for over 3 years and works at a law firm that primarily handles traffic and driving cases. We thought he was just showing off, honestly, because he's in law school now. My wife was stopped by the cops and got a citation because of the train horn, and they towed her vehicle because without a legal horn it was considered unsafe. So my wife must go to court for the illegal horn, and we had to pay out the butt for the towing and impound fees plus a mechanic to fix the horn back to default because I tried and couldn't. When Jennifer found out, she said it was our own fault because Dan told us the horn was illegal. I countered to the two of them that he should have been clearer about his credentials at the traffic firm and we would have listened. But we thought he was flexing and talking out of his butt because he's in law school now, so I blame him for not being clearer. We wouldn't have had this problem if he'd actually told us. Jennifer says we need to apologize to Dan for blaming him. I disagree. For the record, my parents agree. I've been married to my wife for almost 11 years, whereas Jennifer hasn't even known Dan for 3 months. We don't know him well. My wife is family. I certainly don't think she should apologize, nor should I, because Dan could have communicated better here, and now we're in a mess. We would have taken it seriously if we'd known Dan was an actual professional. So am I the idiot for not apologizing to my sister's new boyfriend? You are the idiot. This is the funniest stuff I've read in a while. He warned you. He literally warned you. This is the definition of mess around and find out. He doesn't have to be a lawyer for you to listen to him. LMAO. You all played yourselves. We thought he was just bragging, so we didn't listen. This is all his fault for not making sure, on the first time we met him, that she understood all his experience and knowledge on the topic. Does OP even listen to themselves? You and your wife are both idiots. Imagine getting good advice about something, and instead of asking for clarifying information, you assume that the guy was flexing and ignored it. Then blame him for your own stupid decisions. Get off your high horse, OP. Like, OP didn't even bother to Google it. I at least ask Google if someone tells me something I'm doing might be illegal. I like my records squeaky, thank you. Unfortunately, choosing ignorance over caution because you didn't know someone bit you. If random strangers give you advice, at least find out if there's any merit to it. We all have Google if we're here. You are the idiot on this one. Bit of a messy backstory. My son Mason is pre-tween. When his biological mom and I, 33 male, were casually dating, she never once mentioned being married. After getting his info, I found out myself and decided to reveal this to her husband. They separated, then we found out she was pregnant. After my son was born and we knew I was the father, she didn't want anything to do with him. Neither she nor her husband wanted any sort of involvement. The only reason he didn't go to an adoption agency is that I wanted him with me. She said he was a mistake, and involving him in her family's life would hurt them when she'd rather they work on their marriage and move on from this. So the only time she's ever been around him was the day he was born. I never asked for child support because I didn't need her money. It doesn't matter anyway, because when my wife and I got married 4 years ago, she signed away her parental rights so my wife could legally adopt Mason. She and I haven't kept any contact. I only know from my mom because she's a huge snoop that her eldest son, I don't know how old, but he was probably teen or maybe older, passed away. Now she's been calling about wanting to meet Mason, but we, wife and I, agreed that no, she's not allowed around our lives. Our son is young. He knows that while mom isn't his biological mom, she's still his mommy, and we don't need to confuse his life by having her in it. Even more when she's been talking about having him come over to her and her husband's house. That was a hard no for me. When we spoke, I made sure she knew her only chance to see him would be once he's older and can make that decision independently. If he even wants to see her, it hasn't been enough for her. She's tried contacting my mom, my wife, calling me at work to please give her a chance. She claims after what they went through with her oldest, she wants to make up for time with him. After she brought that up, that's when I told her my son is not a replacement for the child she lost, and if the only reason she wants to be in his life now is that she and her husband lost their child, then it's less of a reason we want either of them around. Now it's, I'm so cruel for making this about her other son, and for daring to think that's the reason why. Even her husband has tried reaching out to say I'm so wrong for not letting her see my son and claiming she's trying to replace their child with him. My mom agrees it's too far, like I'm rubbing salt in the wound when I'm already keeping my son from her. It's just the way I see it because she needs to understand my son isn't her child, nor is he a replacement, and I doubt she would be here right now if they hadn't lost theirs. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Contact a lawyer immediately. She threw away her son like he was nothing and then signed away her parental rights. Now that her circumstances have changed, she's harassing your family and crying foul. While her situation is heartbreaking, it doesn't give her the right to disrupt your son's life. Talk with your attorney to work out your legal options, and then sit down with your wife to discuss what you think is best for your son. Also, make sure his school knows what's going on to make sure there are no pickups beside you and your support system. OP, you are not the idiot, but you need to be careful with your mom. If she feels like it, she could someday say that she will babysit your kid and then invite this woman to see your kid. Be careful about that. Yeah, she's grieving the loss and has fixated on your son. It's not outside the realm of possibility that she could show up somewhere and introduce herself to your son without your prior approval. Talking to an attorney will let you make an informed decision on how best to proceed, and I'd recommend documenting all instances of contact. OP, you're protecting your son from this woman. It's not that I think she'd intentionally harm him, but she will come with a lot of baggage and isn't in a place to navigate this introduction with healthy boundaries. You're doing the right thing. She needs to see a therapist, not your son. I have 3 children. A 24-year-old daughter, a 21-year-old son, and another nearly adult daughter. My oldest daughter was male at birth. She came out at 20. She's currently dating another woman she has seen since she was in college and is looking to propose. Before my mother passed, she gave me her engagement ring. She told me that she wanted my oldest son, at the time we did not know my daughter was a woman, to propose to a woman with said ring. So I've been keeping it ever since, and I always used to tell my daughter about it and show it to her. So now my daughter wants to propose and she asked for the ring. I thought about it and told her no. My mother wanted my oldest son to propose with it. I want to keep her request. It's nothing against my daughter, she just isn't my oldest son. Her younger brother is, and since she came out, I always envisioned giving the ring to him. She had a fit. She told me that it was unfair of me not to want to give the ring to her after promising it to her since she was a kid. I told her that I also promised her grandmother I'd give it to my firstborn son. She is not that and never was, so the ring was never really hers. We got into a huge argument and haven't talked since. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Had your mother given you the ring before your oldest child was born and specified giving it to your oldest son then, I could maybe see where you're coming from. However, since it was after your children were born, your mother gave you that ring with a specific child in mind. Whether or not that child is still your son doesn't matter. Give her the ring. She deserves it and has been promised it since she was young. I think deep down you know this isn't about honouring Grandma's wishes, but about your own negative feelings towards your daughter's transition. What's worth more to you, a good relationship with your daughter or your loyally insistence of adhering to one particular interpretation of Grandma's wishes? I know what I'd pick. Is it? Maybe this is me, but this seems like the complete opposite of transphobia. Not only is she acknowledging her daughter is a woman and her daughter, not her son, she even recognizes that the point of transition is not always the point of the mentality. OP says she is not that and never was, very closely reminiscent of how trans people never fully feel like their born gender, even before they convert. It's full and complete recognition of her daughter's transition. OP's not the idiot. Yeah, I don't see how not giving your daughter an item for your son is phobic, literally acknowledging her gender while respecting the dead family's wish. You just don't get to pick and choose which male privileges you'd like to maintain when you transition. It was promised to the firstborn son. The oldest child is OP's daughter. She doesn't get to have it both ways. Yeah, I don't think people in this thread are giving the grandmother enough weight, to be honest. It seems that people are speaking from a position where they haven't experienced bereavement. It's easy to say you should choose to disrespect the dead over disrespecting the living, but in reality, OP lost her mother. She's dead, forever, and promises like this are all OP has left of her.